So 5 months ago, I made it my goal to qualify for the US team to go to World Cross Country. Now that race distance is 10K. So starting in October, I was doing 10K training until my race in January. There, I managed to place 4th and qualify to Worlds, which is super exciting, but also means that I will be facing off against some of the best 10K runners in the world in just 2 weeks' time, which is terrifying, but also I'm stoked. Anyways, over the last 5 months, I have been learning more and more about the 10K distance and perfecting my training to maximize my performance. And I'm not a gatekeeper, so in this video, I'm going to go over some of the essential workouts for the 10K, how to structure your training, how to build up volume, and also race mentality. So let's get into it. Now, I don't think that there's any one workout that will make or break your race. Obviously, the most important thing is consistency in training and finding a sustainable training approach for you. But there are certain elements of fitness that are really important for performing well in a 10K, like lactate threshold and race pace and speed. And there are some workouts that can really help to maximize those aspects. So I'm gonna go into them. Well, the first workout is race pace reps. This can start out as maybe 400 repeats, but then I think it's best to work up to a longer sustained repeat that will more accurately demonstrate the effort of a 10K. For me, during this buildup, this started with 2 to 3 minute reps during fartleks, then it went to 800s on the track, and then eventually it got to miles on the track. And I think that the best, most essential 10K workout for race pace is 5 to 6 by mile at 10K pace with 2 to 3 minutes rest between. Race pace repeats are really important because running at a certain pace is an acquired skill. Not only acquired for being able to accurately hit that pace, but also to really strengthen that neuromuscular activation that's required for that specific pace. Workouts are really good opportunities to work on race pace and try to maximize that efficiency so that when you do get to the race, that sort of pace isn't a shock to the system, but something that you're used to. The next essential type of workout is a long threshold or a steady long run. Lactate threshold is where your body is producing and buffering lactate at the same rate. So this pace feels comfortably hard, and by that I mean it's always going to be painful, but it doesn't necessarily get worse the longer you go. It just stays at that steady, painful kind of area. This is really important for the 10K because when you're racing a 10K, you're probably trying to go faster than your lactate threshold. So you need a lot of time riding that line and training your body to buffer lactate even more efficiently. So then when you're in the race and you start producing lactate, it won't just build up exponentially in your system, but you'll be able to buffer it and let it just slowly build up over time instead of flooding you immediately. In order to build up that lactate threshold, I recommend doing some sort of long threshold. Now, of course, don't start out with a 5-mile threshold, but I think working up to doing 5 to 8 miles at threshold pace is really incredible for not only practicing and building that lactate threshold, but also challenging yourself mentally because it is uncomfortable to be at lactate threshold. So sustaining that for 30, 40 minutes, even an hour is a really good mental exercise for practicing handling the pain of a race and also knowing that even when it hurts, you are able to keep going. Because no matter what race or distance you're training for, there is always a mental aspect of performance. So for me, therapy is a really important part of my preparation. BetterHelp, which also is the sponsor of today's video, makes it really easy for me to key in on my mental preparation. I know that I race my best when I'm relaxed and have a mentality of curiosity instead of putting too much pressure on myself, and having someone to talk to about the mental pressures of performance and training really helps me work through that and see worth in myself outside of my performances. Therapy helps me to build this mentality and prepares me for the pre-race nerves that are to come. BetterHelp also makes it easy to stay consistent no matter where I am. I can have therapy sessions on the phone, as a video chat, or even messaging, whatever is convenient for me. Getting started is easy. You just answer a few questions, and then BetterHelp matches you with one of over 30,000 therapists in their network. In most cases, you'll be matched within 48 hours, and if it isn't a great fit, you can switch therapists with just the click of a button at no additional cost. Join me and over 4 million others who have used BetterHelp to pursue a healthier, happier life. Click the link in my description or go to betterhelp.com/AllieOstrander to support this channel and also get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. Now let's get back to the video. Personally, during this build-up, I focused more on steady long runs instead of long thresholds. Long thresholds tend to have a high injury risk for me as well as long runs, so I combined both of those stimuli into one to maximize the fitness I could get while also minimizing the injury risk. Today is a steady long run, so I start out like easy run-ish pace and then just get a little faster throughout, but keep it relaxed. Just try to run really smooth. During a long run, something called heart rate drift occurs, which is where your heart rate naturally drifts up throughout the extended activity, even when the effort stays the same. So when I combine that heart rate drift with an increase in effort throughout my long run, it ends up giving a heart rate stimulus similar to that of a long threshold, but at a lower pace and a lighter impact. For example, on my long runs, I've been doing 13 to 15 miles, starting a little faster than easy run pace and working down to a little bit slower than threshold pace. And even though I'm not doing 5 or 10 miles at threshold, I'm getting a similar stimulus without actually having that injury risk. So it's been working really well for me. And if you have a high injury risk, I would recommend maybe combining those and doing something similar. The last really essential element for a successful 10K is speed. And I know that the 10K seems kind of long to have much of an emphasis on speed, but the thing to remember is your fastest self is your fastest self. And by that I mean, when you are at your speediest and sharpest, you're probably going to feel good at every speed slower than that too, because each speed is further away from your max speed if you can get your max speed just a little higher. I know that I feel my best if I have some good speed and sharpness in me, especially for the beginning of a race, the kick finish, or any surge that does happen in the middle. For speed work during this block, I started out with just doing 20 to 45 second hills after easy runs or workouts, and then I started incorporating some 200s into my track workouts, and then lately I've had full sessions that are dedicated to speed. I've slowly started to feel that speed and sharpness coming back throughout this, and that sort of fluidity at a high speed is what I associate with race readiness. It's also just an incredible feeling that everyone needs to experience, so don't forget to work on your speed. So for the essential workout, what I would say is working up to doing 8x400, but when I say 8x400, that's not like boom, 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 boom. That's like 400, 2 minutes rest, 400, 2 minutes rest. So really focusing on that running efficiency and having great form while you're running at a fast pace and being able to hit that same pace again and again because we allow ourselves that long rest. Last Tuesday, I ran a 400 in 64 seconds. Fastest set of 400s of my life, which I have not done in so long, and it actually felt good. And that gave me so much confidence moving forward. So speed builds confidence. Now I'm gonna go over a weekly training structure, which obviously is gonna vary a lot depending on your experience, goals, and point in the training cycle. But the general structure I would recommend is Monday, easy and strides. Tuesday, workout. Wednesday, recovery. Thursday, easy and strides. Friday, workout. Saturday, long run. Sunday, recovery. And my structure is actually different than that as well because I combine the Friday workout with the Saturday long run, so then my entire weekend I have 2 recovery days. But that is the structure that I would recommend. And then if you want to have fewer workouts, you can always just replace one of the workout days with an easy run, some strides, or a cross-train day. It's definitely very individualized depending on what your goals are, but I do think it's important for the day before a workout to have some strides just so that you feel sharp going into the workout. And I also think it's really important to have at least 2 days a week where you're focused on recovery so that you can go into workouts and long runs feeling fresh and able to get the most out of those. Another point I want to make is don't get too caught up in staying on that same structure. Throughout my training, I have had to adjust and move workouts back or add extra recovery days, and that's completely fine because the 7-day structure is actually completely arbitrary. So don't feel tied to that, and make sure that you are flexible and adaptable with your training for what's going to be best for your fitness. The general rule of thumb is 10% a week. So if you're running 20 miles a week, going up by 2 miles per week, basically, which I think is a pretty good rule of thumb. But if you are starting from 0, it's completely fine to go up by more than 10% a week. Like if you ran 10 miles in a week, the next week you could increase by 2 or 3 miles instead of increasing by 1. Another thing to note is that if you're adding workouts at the same time that you're increasing volume, that can be tricky because intensity is also an added stress, just like volume. Try to make sure that you're only increasing one of those at a time. So maybe at the beginning of the training cycle, focusing on increasing volume, and then towards the middle and end, hold that volume and increase intensity instead. And eventually, like, you're just gonna hold steady with both, and that's completely fine. And it's also a good idea to not only hold steady at a certain point, but also have weeks where you drop down in one of those variables so that your body can recover. Another thing to note is that you don't have to increase volume with just mileage. You can also increase it with cross training. I've held a pretty steady running volume for the past 5 months, but at points through the training cycle, I have increased my volume through cross training. So I might do an hour or 2 extra training that week, even though my running amount is the same. If you feel like you want to do more training, but you're nervous about your ability to handle more pounding and impact, I would recommend adding in a little bit of cross training. Also remember, recovery is super important. Having off days is essential to building, and don't feel like you have to be a volume hog. That's not for everyone, and if it doesn't make you feel good, then don't do it. So yeah, that's about all. I hope that this was helpful and educational, and I wish everyone the best in their 10K training. If you have any questions about how to properly structure your training or what workouts to do, please leave a comment below because I will try and answer as many as I can, and I'd love to help. So yeah, that's all for now, folks.